The rusty Winchester hadn't been touched in 40 years. Modern snipers arrived with cutting-edge equipment worth more than most people's cars, while 78-year-old Frank Miller picked up his grandfather's weathered rifle. 5 minutes later, those young marksmen would receive the humbling lesson of their careers, because sometimes the oldest weapon in the most experienced hands becomes the deadliest tool on the range. Welcome to Veteran Legends. Tell us which city you're watching from and hit subscribe if you believe that experience trumps equipment every time. Frank's story will show you why underestimating someone based on their gear might be the biggest mistake you ever make. Riverside County Sheriff's Department hosted their annual precision shooting competition every September, drawing law enforcement snipers from across Southern California. The event showcased the latest in tactical marksmanship, featuring officers who represented the cutting edge of police sniper training. These weren't weekend warriors or hobby shooters. They were professional marksmen whose skills could mean the difference between life and death in hostage situations, terrorist incidents, and active shooter scenarios. Frank Miller had been attending the competition as a spectator for 15 years, ever since his retirement from the Marine Corps. At 78, his daily routine consisted of morning coffee, afternoon walks, and evening news. His shooting days seemed long behind him, relegated to memories of Vietnam, where his skills had been tested under the most extreme conditions imaginable. The competition attracted 42 law enforcement snipers, each carrying equipment that represented decades of technological advancement. Precision rifles with advanced optics, range-finding capabilities, ballistic computers, and ergonomic accessories that promised to eliminate human error from the equation. Their gear represented the pinnacle of modern marksmanship technology. Sergeant Mike Torres, a 12-year SWAT veteran, led the Los Angeles Police Department team. His rifle alone cost more than $15,000, featuring a Schmidt and Bender scope that could calculate wind drift and bullet drop automatically. Torres had attended every major sniper school in the country and held multiple marksmanship records within LAPD. Detective Sarah Kim from Orange County Sheriff's Department brought similar credentials. Her precision rifle system included a suppressor, bipod, and night vision capabilities that made her effective in any lighting condition. Kim had successfully resolved 6 hostage situations using her marksmanship skills, earning commendations from victims' families and departmental leadership. The morning's first event was precision shooting at known distances, targets at 300, 500, and 800 yards with scoring based on group size and consistency. Modern snipers approach the challenge methodically, using laser rangefinders to confirm distances and ballistic calculators to determine exact holdover values. Frank watched from the spectator area, his weathered hands folded over a walking cane that had replaced the rifle he'd once carried through Southeast Asian jungles. His presence was barely noticed by competitors focused on their own equipment and performance, but range officials recognized him as a fixture at these events. Captain Rodriguez, the range master, approached Frank during a break between events. "You've been coming to these competitions for years," he observed. "Ever think about participating instead of just watching?" Frank's smile carried decades of memories. "Haven't shot competitively in 40 years, Captain. These young folks have equipment I never dreamed of. Technologies passed me by." Rodriguez studied Frank's bearing, noting the posture and bearing that never completely left former Marines. "What did you shoot in the corps?" Frank's answer was modest, almost dismissive. "Whatever they handed me. M14 mostly, some bolt-action work when the situation required it. Spent some time in places where accuracy mattered more than comfort." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement that changed everything. Due to an equipment malfunction at the 800-yard target system, the final event would be modified. Instead of known distance precision shooting, Competitors would face unknown distance challenges using iron sights only. No optics, no rangefinders, no technological assistance. Pure marksmanship fundamentals. The announcement caused immediate concern among competitors. Their training emphasized equipment integration and technological solutions to marksmanship challenges. Shooting with iron sights at unknown distances represented a completely different skill set, one that few modern snipers had developed beyond basic qualification levels. Sergeant Torres voiced what many were thinking. "That's not really fair, Captain. Our training focuses on modern equipment integration. Iron sight shooting is pretty much obsolete in law enforcement applications." Before Rodriguez could respond, Frank Miller's voice cut through the discussion. "Mind if I give it a try?" The request surprised everyone, including Rodriguez. Frank hadn't brought any equipment, hadn't registered for competition, and at 78 years old, seemed unlikely to compete effectively against professional marksmen in their prime. The spectator area fell silent as competitors processed the elderly man's unexpected challenge. "I don't have modern equipment to worry about," Frank continued with understated humor. "Might be the only fair way for someone my age to participate." Rodriguez found himself in an unusual position. Technically, the competition was restricted to law enforcement personnel, but Frank's military background and the unique circumstances of the modified event created an opportunity for flexibility. "You'd need a rifle," Rodriguez pointed out, "and insurance waivers, lots of paperwork for liability purposes." Frank nodded toward his pickup truck parked near the range entrance. "I've got my grandfather's Winchester in the truck. She's not much to look at, but the fundamentals still work if the shooter does his part." 15 minutes later, Frank returned carrying a rifle case that looked older than most of the competitors. Inside was a Winchester Model 70, manufactured in 1948, its blued steel showing honest wear from decades of use. The rifle lacked any modern accessories, featuring only iron sights and a worn wooden stock that had been shaped by countless hours of practice. The weapon represented marksmanship from a different era, when accuracy depended entirely on the shooter's fundamental skills rather than technological assistance. Competitors gathered around Frank's rifle with curiosity that bordered on amusement. The Winchester looked primitive compared to their precision instruments, a museum piece that belonged in a collector's display rather than a competitive shooting event. Detective Kim examined the rifle's iron sights with professional interest. "These sights don't have any adjustment capability for different ranges," she observed. "How do you compensate for bullet drop at varying distances?" Frank's explanation was simple yet profound. "You learn to read the target, understand your ammunition's trajectory, and hold accordingly. Takes practice, but the principles don't change whether you're shooting at 100 yards or 800. The unknown distance course required competitors to engage 5 targets at unmarked ranges between 400 and 900 yards. Range estimation errors would result in misses regardless of shooting skill. And without technological assistance, success depended entirely on the shooter's ability to judge distance and compensate for environmental factors. Modern snipers approach the challenge systematically, using terrain association and angular measurement techniques they'd learned in training. Their estimates were generally accurate within 50 yards, representing competent application of fieldcraft skills developed through professional instruction. Frank's approach was different. He studied each target for several seconds, making minute adjustments to his shooting position based on environmental conditions he seemed to read instinctively. His range estimates were delivered with quiet confidence that suggested decades of experience rather than calculated guesswork. The first target was estimated by most competitors at approximately 450 yards. Frank's first shot landed dead center in the scoring zone, followed by 4 additional hits that created a group small enough to be covered by a softball. His Winchester, despite its age and basic configuration, had delivered precision that matched or exceeded the performance of much more expensive equipment. Sergeant Torres watched through his spotting scope with growing amazement. That's impossible, shooting for iron sights at that distance. The rifle doesn't even have adjustment capability for different ranges. How is he compensating for bullet drop? The second target revealed Frank's true capabilities. Located at an estimated 650 yards, it represented a challenging shot for any marksman using iron sights. Frank's shooting was methodical and unhurried, each shot carefully aimed and smoothly executed. His 5 shots created a group that would have been impressive with modern optics and precision ammunition. The third target pushed the limits of iron sight capability. At approximately 800 yards, successful engagement required perfect range estimation, environmental compensation, and shooting fundamentals that few marksmen possessed. Frank's performance was extraordinary. His shots landed with mechanical precision, creating patterns that demonstrated understanding of long-range marksmanship that couldn't be taught in modern training programs. Detective Kim found herself studying Frank's technique with professional fascination. His shooting stance was textbook perfect, but from an era when marksmanship was taught as art rather than science. His breathing pattern was so consistent that his shoulders rose and fell like a metronome, and his trigger control was smooth enough that the rifle's muzzle barely moved during firing. Captain Rodriguez had been scoring targets throughout the event, and the results were creating a situation he'd never encountered. Frank's shooting wasn't just competitive with modern snipers, it was decisively superior. His groups were tighter, his accuracy more consistent, and his performance had improved rather than deteriorated as ranges increased. When the final scores were calculated, Frank had achieved perfect hits on all 5 targets, with group sizes that set new records for the competition. The professional law enforcement snipers, despite their advanced training and expensive equipment, had been outshot by a 78-year-old man using a rifle older than most of their careers. The award ceremony was unlike any in the competition's history. Frank accepted his trophy with the same quiet dignity he'd shown throughout the day, deflecting praise and emphasizing that good shooting was about fundamentals rather than individual achievement. Sergeant Torres approached Frank after the ceremony with genuine respect and curiosity. "Sir, I need to ask about your background. That shooting wasn't just good. It was extraordinary. Where did you develop those skills?" Frank's answer was typically modest. 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1968 to 1970. Spent 2 tours learning that when your equipment fails, fundamentals keep you alive. Came home and kept practicing because old habits die hard. The implication hit like a physical force. Frank was a Vietnam veteran whose shooting skills had been developed under combat conditions where failure meant death. His marksmanship had been tested in environments that no training program could replicate, refined through survival and maintained through decades of dedicated practice. Detective Kim realized they'd witnessed something rare. Master-level skills preserved across generations, demonstrated with equipment that proved the enduring value of fundamental marksmanship principles. Modern technology provided advantages, but couldn't replace the deep understanding that came from years of dedicated practice under extreme conditions. Frank's victory became legend within law enforcement sniper communities. His story was retold at training courses and competitions as a reminder that marksmanship was ultimately about the shooter rather than the equipment. Several departments modified their training programs to include more emphasis on iron sight shooting and fundamental skills. The rusty Winchester returned to Frank's gun safe, but its day at the range had proven that some skills transcended technology, and that experience, properly applied, remained the most powerful tool any marksman could possess. Young snipers began seeking Frank out, hoping to learn from someone whose abilities had been forged in actual combat and preserved through lifetime dedication to marksmanship excellence. Where are you watching from today? Tell us in the comments about a time when experience proved more valuable than modern technology. Subscribe to Veteran Legends for more stories proving that skill, properly developed, never becomes obsolete.